And here we are back again on ESPN 97.5, 92.5. We are here joined by a phenomenal guest. He is the author of Hometown Victory, a coach's story of football, fate, and coming home. Keanon Lowe joins us on the show today. Keanon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, I've been spending time with this book and reading about it. And obviously, people who follow football or even national news might have heard your name before, might be familiar with the story of what happened back in 2019 at the school that you work at. But let's start a little bit at the beginning of your journey, because this book is more than just one incident, right? It's an amalgamation of your life story and what led you to that moment to give you the tools to be prepared for it. So talk to me a little bit about, your early life growing up. Where were you born and raised, and how was the environment growing up for you?
Yeah, I think that was well said. The book is much more than just that one incident in the hallway with that young man that was going through a mental health crisis ultimately. And yeah, the book is kind of about my life that prepared me for that moment, and the reason why I acted in the way that I did in that moment. So, I go back to where I was born and how I was raised. I was born in Portland, Oregon, raised by a single mother. My dad was around, so I was about 8 years old, and then he had to go fight his own fights and fight his own demons, so to speak. And it made me grow up really fast. And, I was 8 years old with a single mother and older sister, younger brother, who was about 8 years younger than me. And I felt, from a really young age, I felt responsible for him. So I think that was the first time first time in my life where I was, I understood that I had to be a good person because someone was looking up to me. And, through that and through being raised by a single mom, I grew up and saw how hard she worked, working multiple jobs and whatnot. I was talented at football, but as I kept getting older, I kept getting better and I kept dominating. And it ultimately led me to get a scholarship at the University of Oregon, which was one of my dreams as a young kid. So played on some good teams there under Chip Kelly, and played with Marcus Mariota, DeAnthony Thomas, LaMichael James. I was on all those teams and carved out a nice role for myself there. But yeah, football was a big thing in my life, and it's really what kind of raised me into be a young man.
Yeah, and especially I'm sure having you said your dad wasn't in the picture till later on in life, and having that single mom household, having mom be the only parent. Do you think that that's why you're able to be a nurturing soul, right? I mean, because sometimes if you have the dad there, your dad's the discipline, mom's more of a nurturer. Typically, do you think your mom kind of instilled some of those values in you at a young age?
I think so. I know so. And when you're young too, you grow up with a single mom or a single parent household, there's really one of two ways that you go. You either go kind of off the radar and do your own thing and be mad and angry as a young kid, which I understand that way, or you understand the sacrifices that single parent is making for you. So you want to, innately be good and not cause problems and be there for that single parent. So I ended up going that way and understanding it at a really young age where, I wasn't an angry kid for the things I didn't have or the way I grew up. That didn't make me angry. That made me responsible. That made me feel like I had a sense of responsibility in my household at a young age.
So you're at University of Oregon. One of the proud member of the Ducks. I'm an Alabama guy. I'm at the University of Alabama, so don't hate me too much. But the Ducks are always a great fan base, great teams historically. And then playing there, when did it kind of come to you? Because obviously, the life of an athlete, you've got already a time limit. I know my body's going to hold up for X amount of years, especially a game like football. You can't play it until you're 70. You can't play it into your 50s. Some, if you're Tom Brady, maybe you get to your 40s, but that's a rarity, right? So when did it start? When did life after football start kind of coming into your mind as a player? Did you start thinking about it when you were in university, or when did you start saying, man, I need to think about what's after this?
Yeah, when you get into college and you go play big time college football at any D1 school, you kind of choose two ways. And the way I chose it, as I chose to look at football as, something that I wanted to just play in college. I didn't really have too many aspirations to go on and play at the next level. So when I got to college, that was my Super Bowl. That was it for me. You know what I mean? And then some dudes, they look at college as a way to go on to the next level and go play in the NFL. But I didn't really have those dreams. So just going through college, I was just like any college athlete, especially college football player, where you don't really know what's next. I'm in college, I'm having fun, being social and doing my thing. And then, you realize that once it starts to tick, your time starts to tick, you're like, oh, wow, this college thing is really going to come to the end. When you're a freshman, sophomore, you think it, you've been in it so long, you feel like it's just going to go on forever. So once I got out of college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved the game of football. I thought about being a coach, but I didn't really jump at the opportunity like that lifestyle until my former coach, Chip Kelly, when he worked in Philadelphia for the Eagles. He called me up as soon as I kind of graduated and was done with my pro day and all that. I didn't keep going and trying to play. And he called me up and offered me a job and brought me into coaching. And I've been a coach ever since.
Wow. And what do you think? Why did Chip Kelly call you? Like all the players that he coached, all those great teams. I'm sure there are athletes that were better than you. I'm sure there's some below you, right? But why were you the one that he called?
He when I was a young kid at the University of Oregon, he really challenged me. And I like to say, when I look back at it, he tried to run me out of there, just like a lot of college coaches do to freshmen. He tried to run me out of Eugene, Oregon, and try to get me to quit. He challenged me. And it was hard as an 18-year-old, wide-eyed, red shirting freshman. It was hard, but I responded to every challenge he gave me. And he really allowed me to really grow into a man. You know what I mean? And when he gave me a challenge, I look him in his eye and I respond to that challenge the right ways. And ever since he started coaching me at the University of Oregon, he knows I was a guy that was willing to run down on kickoffs, block on kick return, and do all these things, sacrifice for the team. And he knew why I would do those things. Is that's because I just like to win. I don't care about credit. I've never been one of those guys about getting my notoriety or nothing like that. But he knew I wanted to win, and I would do anything it takes to win. You know what I mean? I consider myself a winner ever since I was a young kid. So I think that's why he called me. He knew I was a winner. He knew I would do whatever it took to win and do my role. And as you know, as just as any staff or coaching staff, especially football, there's everybody has a role. There's a pecking order there. And a lot of people, sometimes in the coaching business, people aren't really happy with their role, especially young guys. But he knew I'd be a guy that would jump into it, dive into it, and give it everything I got in order for the organization and for him to win. So I think that's why he called me, and I'm really thankful he did, because he kind of gave me a path into real life, into the workforce, and kind of gave me a career.
And then that led you to Parkrose High School, which is in Portland, right? It's over there by the airport in Portland. By the way, what a beautiful city, Portland, Oregon. I love going there. Y'all got some good food in the PDX. Like the food is off the chain.
Love it.
But you go there, going to a high school that had really not a winning program. They weren't built for success. They were getting blown out every single game by 50 points, 40 points. I mean, it got to the point to where even the other team was like, here's the ball. Take it, you score, just feel good about yourself for a moment. Why was that? Was it the challenge of trying to coach this program in your hometown, or why was that the right place to end up?
I think the world works in ways that you don't, in mysterious ways, I guess.
Yeah.
So when Chip went to San Francisco that next year, and he brought me on, and I worked in San Francisco that year. I worked for two organizations fresh out of college. I was on a good career path in the coaching business, and then my best friend passed away over a opioid overdose, tragically, and fentanyl is actually what kind of did him in. So it's all too familiar thing that's happening in the country, and it affected me and my family and my friends, very, very, very closely. We lost him. And so as soon as we lost him, and that was the end of that San Francisco year when I was feel like I was riding high just as a young coach in the game and on a nice career path. We lost him, and I went home, and then I started really thinking about life and what really mattered. And what I came to the decision is what really mattered to me was friends and families and memories that you wouldn't get back. You know, I've been gone playing college football. I've been coaching in Philadelphia, across the country to San Francisco. There's just been a lot of time that I didn't get back, and ultimately I kept thinking about my friend and how there's time that I'll just never get back with him because he was gone. So I went back home to Portland to kind of heal up, and that's when I found a struggling school with a struggling student body. They were on an 0-23 game losing streak, and I was like, you know what, this makes sense. I was trying to heal up for myself, and I felt like if I could give back to young people and do something good with my time, I think, you know, I felt like I could do my friend, you know, honor him in that way. So I found a school, and this struggling school, and got the job, and you know, ended up turning that program around.
Man, and and here's the thing. I mean, it's an incredible story about turning the program around. I mean, when I was reading the book and even looking at stuff online, it has, and this is even called to in the book or in the back of the book about. It really felt like that. Remember the Titans, like you were Coach Boone, right?
No
Taking this
doubt.
program, right, and going all the way. I know you coached them to a winning record, a first playoff victory in the school's history, and that's incredible enough. But I worked in education for a moment, and here's what people might not know about a high school situation is that so many teachers, they look to the football coach, right? They look to the football coach not to only keep the football players in line, but I remember at the school I worked at for a little while, Coach Teague, if we had someone coming out of line, call Coach Teague. Coach Teague's going to come set them right, whether he's a football player or not. Coach Teague has your back. And it seems as though, and I'm making an assumption, but you were kind of that same guy. Like, hey, if we got an issue, call Coach. Coach Lowe's going to come handle it for us. He knows what to do. So let's talk a little bit about the moment, right? That's got you recognized nationally, Congressional Medal of Honor, Citizens Award recipient. You are for this moment. Since Columbine, we've heard of so many school incidences, shootings, what have you, and you help prevent one from happening. So for those people who are listening who don't know, and I know you've probably talked about this so much, but just give us a quick description of kind of what happened on that day in 2019.
Yeah, so when I went to coach that team at Parkrose, after the season, I jumped at the opportunity to work inside the school. One, to make a difference and be around the kids that I just coached through that year, but also then make a difference for the whole student body and get to know the whole student body. And I wanted to keep my players close, especially, but it was a chance to just work in the school and kind of get my hands dirtier. You can dive into the lifestyle of really being there for them kids at that school that a lot of those kids were struggling. And so I worked security there. And so on this day in May in 2019, I get a call to just go grab a student and bring them to the office. It's a call you get 20 to 30 times a day. Nothing to it. Sometimes you're delivering notes and, school security guard, you're breaking up fights, you're doing this, you're doing that, kind of doing the dirty work, making sure the days run smooth. And so I just get a call. It was a random call in May 2019 to go grab a student. So I go down to that classroom and, I asked the substitute teacher, is this student here? Because I had never heard of his name or never met him before. And we look around, ask some of the kids in the classroom. No, he's not here. And I was in the classroom for about 30 seconds when the door popped open. And again, I'm 3 to 4 feet away from the door. I'm just inside it. The door's closed, but I'm in the classroom for only 30 seconds and the door pops open. And as soon as it pops open, there's a young man in that doorway, with a black trench coat and then a shotgun. And first thing I noticed, and it was really like a movie where things kind of go slow motion and you're really hypersensitive. It was crazy. And the first thing I noticed was his eyes, and they were all red, and he just wasn't there. And again, I analyzed everything super quick as soon as he pulled the gun out of his coat, the whole class kind of goes up and screaming, and again, it was like a movie. And as soon as he kind of pulls that gun out, and again, thankfully I was right place, right time. And to me, there's a lot of unexplainable things about the situation.
Right.
But I was 4 feet away from him. You know what I mean? So I was there right at that moment where he pulled the gun out. So I rushed him, and then I rushed and went forward with my two hands and ended up getting two hands on the gun, and he had his two hands on the gun, and we're kind of wrestling in the classroom. And during the whole process, I was able to think through everything so clearly for whatever reason, while everyone's behind me screaming and running out of the classroom. And ultimately, we bang into file cabinet and wrestle around, and we spill into the hallway where I'm able to rip the gun away from him. And that's where, like, the video that kind of went viral, that a lot of people have seen, and it touched a lot of people. That's where that video picks up, where I'm holding the kid with one arm and then holding the gun in my other hand. And I go and give it to I call a teacher next door to come grab the gun. And once that teacher comes and grab the gun, then my focus went to the kid, to where I could tell this kid was having a mental health crisis. He was having a complete breakdown. I didn't see an evil kid. I didn't see a bad kid. I saw a kid that was crying out for help. That's all I saw. So once the threat was eliminated and I handed the gun away to the teacher, that's where, in the video, a lot of people see, and again, it touched a lot of people. It means a lot to me when people reach out and say, thank you for what I did. But once I eliminated a threat, then I gave him a hug and held him and basically told him that I cared about him and that I was there to save his life. So it was a crazy, surreal thing. And it's crazy. I've told the story, so many times, but every time I tell it, it just brings me back, and it's just really surreal. And again, there were some things in that equation that you can't really explain. And for me, I kept going back to me being in that school was because my best friend lost his life. And by him losing his life, I was able to save a young man's life in that journey. You know what I mean? So because I trusted the process, I was trying to heal, and I kept searching for good out of that tragedy, and ultimately I did find it.
It's really incredible too. I mean, and what I get from the book is, I mean, and even you could even speak to this. Coaching is not so much about running plays, but it's about managing personalities and
Hmm.
putting the pieces together and figuring out, okay, this guy's strong here, this guy's weak here. Hey, he might need a pep talk before the game. I know this guy might need some after the game. You have to manage those personalities so that everyone works cohesively. And those instincts as a coach really kicked in that moment in a lot of ways, because you were able to recognize the emotional state of this student the same way you'd recognize the emotional state of a player, and you knew as a coach what to do in that moment. More importantly, as a human being, but those skills that you learned as a coach kicked in, and you were able to coach that kid through the most difficult moment in his life. Because the kid, if I recall, it's not that his intent was specifically to go harm a lot of people, but he said he wanted to harm himself, right?
Correct. And I saw it firsthand. Again, yeah. As soon as he pulled that gun out, he flipped it on himself, and that's where I kind of intercepted it. I saw it. He was, and then obviously we shared a special conversation after that. I tell him I care about him, and he, he's breaking down, and I didn't want to hurt nobody. I was just trying to hurt myself. Nobody cares about me. He was saying all those things to me, and it broke my heart, because kids today are going through a lot.
Yeah.
Even me, I graduated high school in 2010, and even I was going through a lot back then. But now it's just a different world. Things are different, even just 12 years later than that. So kids today are going through a lot, and me walking that walk with them and being their coach and being a security guard, being with them every single day, I started to really understand what they were going through, when they came to school, or when they would lash out in the middle of school, when they would fight each other, when they would bring paraphernalia to school. These
Yeah.
kids are going through a lot. And in that moment, it's like my whole life, like, it prepared me for that moment to obviously not flinch and not be afraid and move forward, through my football background. And then, like you saying, understanding the emotional state of the kid as is like my coaching background. And then, just basically just caring about people, just like, like my mom gave to me when I was a young kid, and kind of raised me and my family to grow that way. So it's a really cool story, and I'm glad I was able to put it into words and tell much more than just that one incident. I lead up through my whole life in the story of the kids I got to coach, which was really special too.
Yeah, I mean, it really is an incredible book. And you know, when you talk about, because I graduated high school in 2011, so we're not too far apart in age, and you know, we were there right at the very beginning of where social media started to really become strong. But it wasn't really until after I left high school that
Right.
Instagram was the go-to app for all these kids. And I can only imagine the emotional stress and trauma that social networking can bring to them, especially in high school, man. I mean, I've learned so much about, you know, they got a spam page, they got this page, they got that page, you know, where they talk about this person and that. So it can be, you know, bullying is one thing. And I know you were bullied as a kid and coming up, but now that bullying is 24/7. It used to be, okay, I just got to make it between 8 and 3 and I'll be all right. But now it's all day, every day. It's constant, you know, and these kids are going through so much. So I really do commend you for knowing that. How do you feel about that word hero? Do you feel like you've earned that title? Because I mean, look, outside looking in, obviously, you're a massive hero. You deserve all the accolades, attention, and praise that you've given. But how do you feel about it? Because you don't seem somebody who, you know, wants to take all that credit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the act of what I did and being there for them kids and being there for that young man in that moment, that definitely was a heroic act. You know, I understand that, but then you think about all the people around our country, first responders, police, firefighters, people who work, you know, in hospitals that do surgeries, and even the teacher that stays late from her, you know, time away from her family just to mentor a kid after school so he passes his math class. You know what I mean? There's forms of being a hero everywhere we look every single day. And mine was just the extreme. And there happened to be a camera up in that hallway, and it happened to be a viral video that touched a lot of people, and people could relate to that situation. But to me, there's heroes everywhere, every day, everywhere you look, there's heroes around us. And really, I was just trying to do my part to help my community and just do something good. And I think if all of us take that same approach, just do something good for somebody else, you know, then we all can be a hero in our own right.
Absolutely. So you have the book out now. Again, the book is called Hometown Victory: A Coach's Story of Football, Fate, and Coming Home. It's an incredible story. You can get it right now through Flatiron Books and wherever books are sold. But let me ask you: are you still at the school?
No, I've had quite the journey
Yeah.
since then. Yeah. So the pandemic obviously hit in 2020 and shut down high school sports, and just, you know, for the time being, where it really didn't seem like there would be an end to it. And So obviously I was without a job and kind of, you know, trying to figure it out. And when the inception of this book started, where I was the second week in the pandemic. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write my book. It was something I always wanted to do. I'm gonna tell my story. And obviously I had the time to do it then, you know, with the pandemic. And so I started writing, and, you know, it was an incredible journey for the last 2 years. And really, you know, into that pandemic, I get a call from, again, I'm not working. High school sports are shut down. High schools are shut down.
Hmm.
I get a call from Coach Chip Kelly at UCLA. And again, he's been looking out for me for a long time, and he's a real dude. He gets a bad rap to a lot of people that don't understand or don't know him, but he's a real dude. Like, he's a real person. So he hit me up, and he knew I didn't have a job. He knew I wasn't working in high schools because high schools were shut down. And basically, he offered me a job at UCLA and was like, "Hey, come out here, come coach with me, and we get money in your pocket and all of that." So I moved out to LA for a year, and then I stayed in the coaching thing and moved out to the University of Nebraska and worked for Coach Scott Frost, who was my receiver coach and OC in college at Oregon. And then really now is the time, as this book kind of is being rolled out. I left college coaching in the last 2 months, and you know, putting all my energy into this book. And I'm back in Portland now, and gonna kind of pick up where I left off with helping these young men in this community and this high school football thing. So I'm on a good path, man, and I'm excited where I'm at.
Man, it's so incredible. And I mean, look, people, when you read the book, you hear this man's story, you figured out what happened on that day in 2019, but everything that's happened before and after that. This is a movie waiting to happen. I'm sure people have told you that already. Or Netflix, if you're listening, like, make this a TV show, because it's an incredible story, man. And just more people need to go out. They got to read the book. Because again, the incident that happened in 2019 is so inspirational, and it did impact people. It's hard not to read that or see that footage and not get emotional. You know, I mean, I got emotional just looking at the video this morning. I mean, tears coming down my eyes. But your whole story is incredible. Your whole story is heroic. You turned nothing to something, man. And, you know, it's just a beautiful thing. So it's really an honor to get to speak to you today. And I truly mean that. Again, the book is Hometown Victory, A Coach's Story of Football, Fate, and Coming Home. Keanon Lowe, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate it.